Jim. He's dead.
Hello, I'm Stephen Cadwell. Welcome to Improv Autopsy and part 2 of my interview with musical director extraordinaire Alex Engleberg. You can find out more info about Alex, or even find Alex, through the link in the show notes, and you should. Great improvisational musical directors are hard to find. For good measure, go and listen to my interview with MD John Hilson before or after this one as well. You won't regret it. Right now, though, is part 2 of Alex Engleberg's Improv Autopsy. So when was that first show? How long have you been doing this?
Almost 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah, this was like late 2016 when I started getting into it.
Have there been any formative failures that you've either witnessed or experienced?
There's definitely been uncomfortable moments. Like, I guess that like getting on stage and doing some improv felt kind of like a formative failure, because it was like, ooh, I'm like, I can really tell that I have a long way to go in this and I'm not crushing it. And that felt really awkward. And also sometimes people will bring me on stage in a show as kind of a bit, where it's like, maybe that's the game. Like there's a game in our playbook called Fish Out of Water.
Yep.
Where they bring people on stage who aren't supposed to be on stage. And I've done that a couple times, and like I always feel like it doesn't go well, but I think objectively it does go well because it accomplishes the game and people are actually rooting for you, even if it just doesn't work. So I think I'm just not perceiving it right. Sometimes shows just like don't hit the same as other shows, and so analyzing that can be interesting. I think I've gotten better at breaking that down a little bit so I don't feel emotionally tied to those failures, I guess.
I did Second City Conservatory, and when we were getting ready to do our shows, there were 3 separate classes were doing their class reviews at the same time, and this only happened once, which is a shame because it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. When it gets down to the wire for the sketches, a lot of times everyone just starts bringing in songs, and then the MD has to compose music or put music together for their songs.
Mm-hmm.
And someone, I don't even remember what his song was about, but the musical director started to, the prelude or whatever, and then the vamp into the song, and he kept missing it. And he'd miss it and he'd say, oh, okay. And then it would like come back around, and he did it like 6 or 8 times. And then it just ended because he'd used all his time trying to get into it. But it was one of the funniest things ever. And I don't know, I hope they didn't make him feel bad for it, because if that would have been, he couldn't have written anything, I think, that would have been funnier. Like whatever song he didn't end up singing could not have been as funny as the one he kept almost starting to sing.
Yeah.
But missing the intro. Have there been any moments where you were just not on the same page with whoever was on stage trying to sing, and how did that resolve itself? If it did?
Yeah, that happens sometimes where like maybe the singer, it's usually oftentimes it's due to like maybe the audio speaker volume just wasn't set up right, where it's like maybe the person on stage isn't hearing me very well, and so they'll be like super out of key, and that can be tough. And I try to adapt as best I can and be like, okay, now that's the key. I'm going to try to just shift.
You're describing me right now, being my accompanist.
Stuff like that can definitely happen. I think for me, like, I think the worst case scenario in improv is if people either don't get it or are uncomfortable, but no one acknowledges it. That's what you don't want. If it's like we're doing something and no one's really like connecting with it, but we're just going to be like, okay, that was it, and now moving on, and just like kind of just wrapping a bow on that and being like, that just feels horrible. Just being like, because you want to like apologize and be like, I'm sorry you didn't like that, let's move on. But you have to just be like, okay, that was that, and I'm just going to confidently move on to the next thing. And it just feels super awkward. And so I think all maybe the worst kind of feeling moments for me have been something like that, where it's like, okay, we're doing a game and we're just not really finding like the crux of it in a way that's hitting, or maybe there's kind of an uncomfortable energy to it that like no one's really addressing. I did like kind of recently, there was like a musical scene in a short form show where we got like a suggestion from a couple, and we were like, how long have you been together? Like, how did you meet and how did that go? And the couple, the woman in the couple kept kind of referencing how like the man was sort of reluctant to commit to the relationship for a while, and then they ended up together eventually, like officially, and now they've been together for a long time. And I'll bet that the relationship is going fine, but I think the way that she presented it sounded very like, huh, like, are you sure like this is like working? And then we took that suggestion and then we did it as like a musical, but like they just only referenced that fact about how like they only referenced the man being like kind of freaked out by this woman like trying to like come after him and like lock him down. And it was just like playing the I understood how he got there because that was kind of the all he had to work with, and so it was hard to break out of that as like the main offer. But I just remember feeling like, wow, that's like I feel so bad for them watching. I feel bad for like everyone's just like uncomfortable, and so that was like the most recent example of like, okay, I'm like super glad to move on from this scene because that was just like a weird energy that like was we never really like could address properly.
Do you think if after the scene was over, you just ended with shaving a haircut, it would have poured oil on the waters?
Maybe if everyone is feeling the same discomfort, then sometimes acknowledging it can be the right move. Because like I guess stand-up comedians do that a lot, where it's like acknowledging that their joke didn't land or something, which is something I think you know you want to be sparing about that, because if you're constantly apologizing for yourself, then that's like a weird energy. But if you do it like once or twice, then it kind of can hit, because then it like diffuses that energy, right?
Yeah. And definitely also adds to the awkwardness that it came from an audience member, and then, you know, the couple especially, and then you're wondering, it's like, well, he was reluctant to get into the relationship. They've been in a relationship a long time. I wonder if we just ended that.
I wonder. Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, that would be one way to reference it.
I have definitely been privy to and heard stories of, I don't know if this happens much there, but, and I don't know if it happens much down in Orlando anymore either, but there was a time when there were so many proposals happening, you know, like every couple of weeks there'd be a proposal, and some of those could get also very awkward.
This was at SAC?
Yeah.
Wow, cool.
The most famous one, I think that I don't think I was there, I think I just heard about it, was someone was like, we knew each other in high school, and it just didn't work out, and then I heard your husband died, and
whoa.
yeah.
What?
Yeah. And then that one ended with like, you know, so will you marry me? Please?
Oh my gosh.
And everyone was fairly certain. It was like, yeah, they always say yes, but you can kind of tell when it's a yes for now because we're in front of all these people, and in the car ride home, we're going to have a conversation.
Whoa.
And you know, a great thing to happen in the middle of a comedy show is like, hey, now let's get the comedy train back on the track.
Oh my gosh. That's wild. I can think of an example of like a moment that could have been awkward, but then it was like handled in a really good, really fun way.
Yeah.
I was doing a short form show at Unexpected, and there was like a woman in the audience who was having a really loud conversation with someone on her phone. She also seemed like maybe the kind of person who just kind of like will just talk to herself and kind of just maybe not process like what's going on around her or something. We were doing a show. She was talking a lot. Everyone was getting pretty uncomfortable because I think everyone was understandably feeling like, wow, this like woman's like really like interrupting everything. That's weird. And I think she was like kind of like people were approaching her, telling her to stop, and we're going to get the security involved for to kind of escort her out, but they hadn't yet come onto the scene yet. But Jay Hitt, who works at Unexpected, he was hosting that night, and he basically acknowledged her and invited her on stage. He was like, hey, like, nice to meet you, do you want to come on stage? And like she was like, yeah, sure, yeah, like she like came on. He was like, we're going to make you the star of a sitcom, and we're going to be your family, and you're the main character, and everything you say is correct. And so we just did it, and we were just kind of like, classic you, always saying that. Like, it was just kind of like, we were just kind of making her the center of attention, but in a way that everyone kind of was in on, and it was really fun. And she was in on it too. I think we did that whole scene, and it was great. And then we were like, thank you so much. And we like escorted her into security, who was there waiting.
Oh, I love it. You did sitcom with her, and then you escorted her to security. And it's like, you're never going to see her again.
We realized that at Unexpected Productions, if you just get black t-shirts that say security on them, and then black hats that say security on them.
Yeah.
You can put those on anybody, and then if you approach an audience member, they will listen to you like like 5 times more than not. And so we have those in the backstage. And so mostly in theater sports, because that's the late show and a lot of people come to that. Then like sometimes those security clothing will get deployed, even though we don't have like a real security person at the theater, which is really fun.
I love that. That's genius. Wait a minute, we're you just on stage and now you're security? Shh.
Yeah. Well,
me.
if they were really rowdy, then they probably weren't paying that close attention to who's who. Yeah.
Oh, that's always it gives me hot face even just thinking about it. I'm not one for confrontation.
Fair enough. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's switch gears a little bit. I've got some questions that we'll see. Some of them may be applicable. You might be able to answer, and some of them maybe we'll try to change to fit a musical director a little bit better. So, Alex, how do you get into the proper headspace to play before a show?
I try to make sure to like actually do the warm-ups with everybody, like backstage. I don't skimp out on that. I think even if I'm not going to talk on stage, like playing word ball and everything, like it gets me feeling connected.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel really excited to kind of react to what they're going to throw at me in a show and make me feel excited to throw stuff back at them. So I always try to do those, even when it's like I'm a tree or like those warm-ups where you actually have to talk and come up with stuff, then those scare me, but I still try to do them anyway. I try to eat and drink water and try to have a chill attitude about it. That's most of it. Sometimes I'll like, if it's a venue I haven't played before, then maybe I'll like hang out in the house and like just kind of sit on stage and just like look at the theater like for a little bit, just to kind of be like, okay, I'm in this space. I know what's going on. And I'm pretty light on like the musical warm-ups, getting my fingers ready, but I try to do something just so I don't feel like I'm going in totally cold. So I'll just kind of like mess around on different keyboard patches and just kind of make sure I know how to play chords and stuff.
Will they do a warm-up in the space with you before the show, or?
Oh yeah, and then for musical improv, warm-ups are pretty warm-ups at the piano are pretty common. When I work with musical improv groups, we have a couple specific things that we'll do. So we'll before long-form musical improv, pretty consistently, we'll do vocal warm-ups. We get into the space just so we can be next to the piano, and I just lead people in some vocal warm-ups. Mostly because, like, you know, your voice is an instrument, and vocal warm-ups are a good way of kind of essentially kind of like lubricating that instrument by kind of getting you to engage your voice in a more relaxed way, so that when you're on stage singing louder, then you're kind of still in that relaxed spot and not like straining your voice. And then we'll do a couple rhyming exercises, like games that are based on getting you to rhyme. And then we'll do song exercises. And the main one that gets deployed the most is what I call the chorus circle. Because in musical improv, most of my shows, we do a lot of like verse chorus structure, and we encourage people to come up with a hook and then come back to it. And so I've found that people are a lot more reliable at finding those memorable hooks and remembering other people's memorable hooks and then kind of bringing them back in a song if I kind of get everyone to just make up some choruses in a round in a circle. So the chorus circle is basically I'll vamp and then people will just sing only the chorus of a song that they're making up. So no verse. So just thinking like try to dumb it down as much as possible, because choruses of songs are so simple. It's just like a few words repeated over and over again. So just like making up some of those just so your brain is ready to be like na 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 hey hey goodbye, like those kinds of songs, or hit me with your best shot, hit me with your best shot, hit me with your best shot, fire away. Some iconic choruses.
Every 40 years, the Mushroom Festival.
Every 40 years, the Mushroom Festival. That's a classic moment from Ocean State Improv Festival 2025.
Yeah.
That was incredible. That was wild. So stuff like that. Yeah, that usually happens. Maybe we'll run through some songs just to make sure that we all remember how to be like, have somebody sing a verse and then another person be like ready to jump in with the chorus right as that verse is wrapping up. That can be good to kind of like remember skill wise. So that's a good warm up, just to be like, let's just run through some songs. And then usually that takes us about like 20 minutes. And then we have to like get out of the space because they have to open house. So
Alex, do you have a favorite get for, a favorite ask, and or a favorite request for the music director?
Oh yeah. So favorite ask. I don't know if my friend Thomas made this one up, but I've seen him do it a lot. He'll say like, "Who here knows someone named Tim?" And then someone raises their hand, and he'll ask like, "How do you know Tim?" And then like that's the suggestion.
I've not heard that before, and I love it.
I'm like, that is the best ask I've ever seen. Another great one, Shannon Bass, who is a really great improviser at Unexpected. She'll do, who's playing Wordle still? And then she'll ask, what word did you start with today? And I'm like, just for creativity, I'm just like really into those gets.
Yeah.
I love those. Another get that I've gotten to do that is fun is like we did this show a couple times called Mixtape, which is basically kind of a short form musical improv show where it's kind of like a somewhat structured show where we have a bunch of specific games that, or genres that we're going to get to, or potentially get genres from the audience as the structure of the show. And there was a part where I would lead a section. And one thing I tried in the musician's choice segment of Mixtape is it was me and Thomas playing as a band. And we together asked the audience to name a kind of a random noun. And so someone would be like, alien. And we'd be like, okay, great. Well, there's actually like a really obscure musical genre called alien core. And we're gonna because if you take any word and then put core after it, then that's probably the name of a real musical genre that someone has come up with. So we're gonna do some alien core for you, and then we would like figure out what that sounds like. That's pretty fun. So that's a get that I've actually gotten. And in terms of like style suggestions, I think my favorite style that I have like received, like my enjoyment of people's style suggestions is usually paired like with whether I'm able to actually execute it on it well in a way that I really like. And so that can depend on like my own knowledge of the genre or the instruments I currently have available or the players that are in the band. So maybe I'm often really sad if I am on the piano and someone says like ska, which is like the number one genre that people suggest because it sounds funny. Like people feel really good about themselves when they shout ska at an improv show. And I love ska, unironically, but I kind of know what ska sounds like. But when I'm only at the piano, I always feel like, oh, like I feel like bad to the people who really like ska because I know that what I'm about to do is going to not sound like good ska. But then sometimes if I'm on a guitar that night, then I feel great because I kind of know how to play some guitar ska patterns. So stuff like that. My favorite genre I've gotten is someone said prog rock, and I like really like prog rock, but no one like asks for it. We did this like improvised song, and I kind of just went off and like kind of went chaos mode and just playing a lot of chords that were like hard to sing to, but I'm like, no, but that's what prog rock's all about, baby. And then I basically played like Yes, like the band Yes, and like Rick Wakeman kind of old Genesis kinds of stuff because my dad was really into prog rock, so he like showed me. So I'm like, I'm ready for this, and it was like it felt good to me in the moment, so I liked that moment.
What's the opposite end? What's your least favorite suggestion? Is it ska when you're only at a piano, or is it something else?
I think it's like because of the quantity, I'm a little over the ska suggestions. It's kind of a bummer when people are like, because sometimes we'll get a get that's like, what's your least favorite musical genre? Or like what musical genre can you not stand or something, and then that's kind of a fun way to lead in. But then sometimes if like I'll notice like what genres people say the most for that, and then it kind of makes me sad where like people will say like hip hop and I'm like, what, you don't like hip hop? Hip hop's really good. Or like people but the most common one is country, and I'm like, well, there's some like I think country can sound really fun, and doing a country song really well can be really funny and really good. And so I always get sad when like certain genres are always like the butt of the joke over and over again, because I feel like there's good music everywhere.
Anything played on the recorder.
Yeah, that's a good genre.
You need to start bringing it with you if you aren't. Do you have a way to burn something that isn't inspiring you, or have you seen actors burn a suggestion that doesn't inspire them in a way that you enjoy?
I mean, that's not something I usually have a lot of control over because I'm not the one getting the get, but I always respect when an improviser is sort of like, yeah, we've gotten that one before. Like, you know, the way I've seen that works well is you just give it as an example.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, what's a musical genre? Like country or ska, and then it's like you've now essentially disabled that suggestion option.
Yes,
which is amazing. That's such a good idea.
you probably don't have much call for this, so I'll ask this two ways, but I'll ask it just the first way to see if it sparks anything. So whatever it sparks is fine. But the question as written is, what do you look for in an audience volunteer?
Oh, I think it's ideal when they're like down, but like a little nervous. Like you can really feel that they're like you want to feel it because I think the audience wants to sort of feel like it's a risk, but
Yeah,
that it's like that they're in good hands, right? They want to feel like, oh, they're maybe like not expecting to be up there, but also they're not uncomfortable. Because I think what you don't want is if it's like you seem too confident here, then it's like I'm not quite feeling that risk level that is making me like engaged. I think like if someone volunteers and they're like maybe do improv already, then I'm like, well, that isn't great because you're kind of like you just don't have the energy that like the point of having an audience volunteer is to inject a certain risk energy into a scene. And so if
yeah.
you're not able to provide that because you're so confident in this art form, or maybe you're like an improv student or something and you're like, well, this is an opportunity to get on stage, then it's like, well, that's a bummer because it's like that's just like it's kind of we have to recalculate a little bit because it's like it's a different energy than what the point is of that, I guess.
Yeah. Do you have a performance persona when you're out there, that differs from everyday Alex?
I think I have to like think a lot when I'm on stage, when I'm in the pit or in a show where the audience can kind of see me. I have to try a little harder to look like I'm having fun because I get so basically because my concentration face looks like I'm not having fun.
Yeah.
And so I catch myself sometimes kind of like just like staring, like looking really like zoned out where I'm actually like just really locked in. And so sometimes like I guess the stage persona, Alex, is just like kind of like guy who is aware that he exists and is laughing in a more visible way.
Yeah.
But I actually am constantly laughing in a genuine way that I can't control. Like I actually sometimes wish I laughed. I could kind of not break on stage, but I think I hope it in many ways it adds to the show. But like I will laugh pretty hard at stuff that people on stage are doing that really genuinely surprise me. And so people will say afterwards, like, oh, I love like watching you just like laughing at everything. And I'm like, okay, great. I'm glad that that's not like totally like undermining or like, totally distracting.
Yeah. No, I'm a fan of that kind of thing, and I love, and it is part of the show, and I think it also for anyone that would be tempted to believe that it's not being all made up, seeing someone genuinely laugh like that, that's a part of the show in that way is really reinforces kind of what we're doing as improvisers, which is
Totally.
hopefully delighting and surprising.
But it's also funny because I sometimes I laugh at things in an unpredictable way because the things that make me laugh are a little bit different from what the audience would laugh at because I think there's like I will laugh when I'm just very genuinely surprised. And sometimes there's funny things that happen that maybe I like didn't that don't totally catch me off guard in the way that it would an audience. But then there are certain like slightly underwhelming moments that I will feel very caught off guard by how underwhelming it was, and then I'll laugh at it. And then it's distracting because it's like, why did you laugh at that? I didn't, like I'll just kind of laugh at like uncomfortable moments too, and then it's just like, what is happening? What's Alex doing?
Do you or how would you describe your relationship with the audience? I think we were kind of touching on that just now, but
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like I weirdly feel like I'm just part of the audience a lot because, well, partly because I just like that's the reason I do improv is because I like watching improv. So I'm just like I'm just here. I would just watch this show anyway, so I'm like happy to be here, and I'm here because the people on stage are going to like surprise and delight me in the way that I would as an audience member of like an avid fan of an improv group. And so that's like kind of how I feel is I'm just like I'm kind of like in the audience, but then sometimes I'm like remember that I'm actually like a performer and I need to like be a performer. That's mostly it. And I think sometimes I wonder like what choices I make are consciously being perceived by the audience versus like they maybe don't get what I'm doing. And that's fine. Like I think it's like people know that like people can really key into like, oh, Alex just did something funny if I play like a song that everyone knows, or like I play the Jurassic Park theme or something. Then people will be like, ah, classic Alex, he's doing something funny. But I'm also making tons of other choices that people on stage are really appreciate, but then maybe the audience is not, like, they're not connecting that to like something specific that I've chosen to do. But sometimes I'll hear from the audience like, wow, like I could really tell that you were like playing along with them, and like I loved how you kind of set the vibe of this scene. And then if someone tells me that, I'm like, whoa, like you really get it in a way that like not everyone does.
Well, and I mean, there's a decent percentage of what you're doing that isn't intended to be noticed, quote unquote, right? So it's reinforcing
Mhm.
what's going on stage. It's setting a mood that can be doing exactly what you want it to
Oh
do,
yeah.
which is making the audience feel something, but they're not aware of it on that level that, oh, that's
Yes.
because of Alex. That's because of what Alex did.
Yeah, ultimately, like if I'm in a scene and it's like really over the top and people are being really funny and I'm playing like really epic music under that really makes it a lot funnier. And like if people come out of that and say like, wow, that guy on stage, like this one improviser was so funny, I take that as such a compliment, because I'm
Yeah,
like, I love that I was able to kind of like lift that person up basically.
absolutely. Alex, what inspires you during shows?
I love patterns. I think I'm pretty obsessed with patterns. And so finding the game of a scene is like a pattern, right? And so like if I feel like if there's like a running bit going on, then I'll kind of lock into that and I'll just become giddy at the idea of getting to like play into that running gag or something. So I'm just like, I get really motivated by like, it's like, oh, the running bit is that like, he plays this like musical sting every time this one guy shows up. Then if I can figure out that everyone can see that that's the running game, then I'll be like, hey, I'm having a great time. So I love games in that sense, and that's pretty inspiring. Getting people to kind of feel like the everyone's kind of expecting an offer, and then I make the offer, or
Yeah.
someone else makes the offer. I'm just like fireworks in my brain.
Is there anything that shuts you down or takes you out of it during a show, or could take you out of it?
Sometimes kind of like structural kind of showmanship things will kind of get in my head. So if it's like, maybe if I feel like we're not kind of taking care of the like momentum or the energy of a show in a certain way, like maybe in a short form show, if someone's taking kind of a long time to like explain a game or something, or I'm kind of like, I feel like we got to just like get to the thing faster. I'll get kind of bummed about that. I'm not really sure like what's the sort of main detractors. A lot of it is very personal psychological, where it's like I'll often realize later that I'll kind of feel off in a show, and then I'll kind of realize later that I was just like hungry or tired or something, and it's like had nothing to do with the show, and it's like
Yeah.
so random, right? When like those things can just kind of like, you'll just feel down for no reason.
In your estimation, Alex, and I'm gonna say that for this, I mean, scene partner is like, but like you and Phil when Phil does Grandpa's Grandpa Phil.
Yeah.
So a scene partner in that regard. What makes a good scene partner for you as a musician?
I think just like people making bold choices is like really exciting to me. Like people kind of just like having a vision and kind of plowing ahead can be really fun for me, because I love to kind of follow people along for the ride if they're going somewhere really fun. And so I think that like a scene partner feeling really confident in like a direction of that scene and being like, this is what this is about now. Like that can be really fun for me, because I can just be like, I feel like taken care of, because it's like, this is what it is. Like Phil totally does that. Other improvisers that I get to work with that are like some folks get to play with that have this like really like laser sharp like song structure kind of capability. Like my friend Camilla Franklin that I've done tons of shows with, she's constantly like, I'll start a song and then she'll basically like have the whole song done in her head before she like starts singing basically, and I can feel that she's just like I'll find out later that like she didn't really know what was like, she kind of was like piecing it together bit by bit like every improviser, but in my head I'm like, it really feels like she's just like, okay, and then here's the verse, I have a chorus ready to go, and here's the bridge that's going to have like a fun alternate perspective that sets emotional stakes for the character, and then like she just does everything, and it's really cool. So I think just like stuff like that, where it's like, oh, the scene partner just kind of like has stuff figured out, and so I can just focus on just kind of uplifting those moments that they are really confident about, I guess.
Cool. Is there any advice that you would give your younger self?
I remember that when I was younger, I actually felt like it was kind of like I felt this sort of embarrassment about improvising, like doing something kind of silly or improvise. Like I was just like, because I was playing classical piano and I had the like ability to kind of learn a song by ear and just kind of play it, but for some reason I would just be kind of like shy about it. I would just being like, I don't know, I don't know, I guess this might sound like this, like if I did like a blues version of this song, it might kind of sound, I don't know, like it might sound like this, and then like I would play it, and then like people would maybe like my family would like listen to that, and then they would like laugh, but mostly out of delight because they were like, "That's so like wild and cool." But like I would hear that and just kind of feel like, "Oh, I just feel very kind of like weird about it for some reason, and I'm embarrassed." I guess I would go back and be like, I would tell myself like, you're clearly so like engrossed and addicted to like silly energy in other people, and so don't be afraid to like put that energy out in the world yourself.
I love that. Is there a favorite type of character or a favorite type of scene that you like to underscore or accompany?
I am kind of obsessed with like really sort of dramatic characters. So if it's like, I think if someone comes out and does like a really kind of like epic monologue, but it's about something silly, then that makes me really happy. Like a really like maybe a characters are having a really like dramatic conversation about something that doesn't matter that much. Like, oh my god, like you watched the latest season of Game of Thrones without me, and then it's like it becomes like a big thing, and they're like smashing glasses on the ground and stuff like stuff like that, and like just keying into that and being like, this is funny because it's serious, then like being serious to make it funny is just like feels really good. And so that is tends to be my favorite. I love sort of like those kinds of like old timey radio characters, like an old timey narrator or something like coming on and just like there are certain improvisers that I've seen that they just like have a voice that just like feels like a genre, and I love like when they come on and they just like kind of start being in that genre, and I'm just like it brings that music out of me, and that's just really fun. There's certain song genres that I think like I love working into shows, and there's like disco or like funk kind of stuff. Like I love in when I just listen to music for fun, I love any kind of music with like a good beat to it. So I'm often listening to funk music or maybe hip hop or jazz or stuff like that, where there's sort of like a cool drum component to it, or there's a dancey danceability to it. And I think that sometimes in a musical, we find a very sort of like whimsical reason for characters to be singing in kind of like a sillier musical genre. And then so just like leaning into that and being like, this is like the disco song about how we're all like feeling a certain way. Breaking out of the story and going into a song like that can, if you set it up right, can feel really good. And if an improviser is able to kind of like key into like a really like catchy hook that is really in genre, that can be really fun. Like I'll reference another thing that Camilla did just because it's the first thing that's popping into my mind. There was like a musical improv rehearsal I did where there was kind of some kind of like heist being set up where there was like a characters making a plan to kind of break into something, and I forget exactly what happened, but I kind of just decided it to just to give them an offer that could be fun to work with. I started playing this kind of like disco vamp under it, and just to kind of see what kind of song they might sing, and like if there's a hook that would feel good. And then I think Camilla came in with the hook of like a nothing's gonna go wrong tonight, nothing's gonna go wrong tonight, and it like and it felt very like it was like she only did that because I initiated with that genre, and that like felt it was like it was something that was like true about the story but also true about the musical genre,
Yeah.
right? And there are tons of examples with lots of people that I've gotten to work with where they've like nailed that, and I'm just like, I love that when it's like I start a musical genre and then we find a song that feels like in the world of the genre and also in the world of the story that had happened so far, I guess.
Okay, so this next question can be either someone with you in the pit, or this could be someone on the stage while you're in the pit, or whatever permutation you want. But the question is, if you could do a scene with anyone alive, who would it be?
I have a huge improv crush on Off Book, which is like a specific musical improv
Yeah.
troupe, and they have a podcast and they also do a lot of live touring shows. And I've seen them perform a lot, and I think a lot of what I learned actually as in terms of like offers as an accompanist, I learned just by listening to their accompanist Scott Passarella. So I'm like, I already think he's a genius, and I already think they're geniuses. So I'm like, oh my god, like I would be so curious what a scene would be like, either playing with Scott or playing with Zach and Jess, who work on that podcast.
Okay, so part two of the question, same question, is if you could do a scene with anyone from the pantheon of people who've gone before, who are no longer with us, who would you do a scene with?
I'm sure there's a lot of like musicians that I've listened to that are really smart, and I would be really curious what they would do in like a kind of improv comedy setting, because they're so kind of genius and keyed in. This is a not dead, very much not dead, very alive person. But Jacob Collier is like a very like genius young jazz fusion person who plays a lot of different instruments and makes a lot of songs all by himself. And he has this very clearly like improvisational quality to him that he works into his live shows, where he'll like conduct the audience and make everyone sing, and he'll like can adapt very quickly to like funny things that other people do. And I'm like, he would be a total genius in an improv setting if he ever wanted to, and that would be a kind of a dream collab for sure. Anyone in the jazz pantheon, there's sort of an art to playing jazz that involves very much like everyone talks about how jazz is very improvisational, but I think there's a lot of like kind of yes and listening that happens. Like I'm right now taking some jazz classes and learning how to play in a jazz combo, and my instructor is giving me notes that feel like just an improviser teacher giving improviser notes, or he's just kind of like, yeah, just make sure that you're like really listening to like what your bandmates are doing, and like kind of make choices that like give them that kind of make validate their choices. And I'm like, of course, that makes so much sense. But like, thank you for saying that, because like I need to kind of remember that. So I think any legendary jazz person I think would be a valid answer, because I would really like to see what they think about improv, and like if they enjoy watching it, and be like, how would you enjoy like working with this, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, so the final permutation of the question is, if you could do a scene with anyone fictional, who would it be?
I would love to play music with Rolf from the Muppets.
Yes.
He just has a good vibe to him that I like.
Absolutely.
Of course, Dr. Teeth is also very valid too. But
yeah, I was going to say Dr. Teeth. Yeah,
and
all of Electric Mayhem were sad that you chose Ralph, but
yeah. I mean, hey, like get Animal in there. That's got to lead to some fun improv.
Oh, he'd be such an agent of chaos for an improv show if you put him behind a drum kit.
Correct. Yeah.
Alex, when you're a musical director, what is the most helpful from the stage for you?
There's certain like kind of narrative things that I think are best to explore to lead to like good song premises. Because I think that like musicals don't just like write songs about anything. Like they don't just like, if a character is like, okay, my toast is done from the toaster, they don't just be like, all right, here's the song about my toast being done from the toaster. Usually there's like a metaphor reason why that's important. Or if it's like, wow, like waiting for your toast, isn't that just kind of like waiting for things to happen in your life? Oh, interesting. And then like that's the song. And so like I love when an improviser can do that basically, and be like, something happens and they're like, wow, isn't that just like this other thing? And then like once the metaphor starts clicking, then I can be like, okay, now that feels so musical. I'm like so inspired and I want to play under that. I think also, well, I already said like I love game and patterns, and like I love when people find the game in a scene. I just did a musical improv show where people were debating about like a spelling of a word or something, or like pronunciation of a word, and it was this like one-off little thing, but I was like, I just decided to start playing under that, like as if that's the song, and everyone laughed because it was like why would that be the song? But then they leaned in and they were like, all right, we're gonna do like a fun like patter song about like debating the spelling and like different takes on the spelling of this word. I'm like, yeah, I love that when we just like lean into that and find a silly moment that's like fun to put a magnifying glass on, I guess.
What is least helpful from the stage?
One thing that comes up a lot in musical improv classes when people are trying to explain musical improv is like using songs to expand, not advance, right? And that comes up pretty often because usually it's like there's the plot of like what the characters are doing and what they're discovering and what they're adventuring out to do. But then usually the songs are about how they feel about it and not so much about like the stuff, the content of what's happening. So it can be a struggle for me if the improviser's instinct is to go into kind of like narrative details while a song is happening. I think that there's room for advancing. There are plenty of musicals. There are musical numbers where something happens in the musical number. Like that's very common, but it can't mostly be about that. It has to mostly be about like the feeling. It can be a struggle if the improvisers are like, we're doing the thing, we've gotten to the big gates and we're going to go into the dungeon. And then it's like, we start the song and then now they're like in the dungeon and they're meeting a monster and the monster's like really important. And so that it's like they have a conversation. And I'm like, I feel like this, like I would have rather not done this song at all and just had you done a scene with no music because I think that this feels more like a scene to me than a song.
Yeah.
So that can be a little bit of struggle, but I try my best more lately to be just kind of like really like radical acceptance about it and just being like, yeah, like that's what that, yeah, we are doing that right now. And like, yeah, we can just have a really plotty song and like, I'm totally chill about it. Don't worry about it. And I think in some ways I've been, I think successful at just kind of letting go of stuff like that and being like, yeah, maybe that's just what this is about. And that's fine.
Yeah. Sometimes you get Oklahoma, sometimes you get Les Mis. I mean,
wait, what do you think? Wait, what? I want to zoom in on that comparison. Like, what is that like a good versus bad, or is that like a plotty versus whimsical, or like?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going for. I don't know Oklahoma all that well, but I'm assuming that the songs aren't that narrative or aren't that.
Yeah, Oklahoma's very whimsical. That's a really good comparison because Les Mis is like it's sung through, so everything is very like here is what's happening to my character.
Yeah,
here is how I feel about you, but now we're gonna go do something. So like that's super real. Like yeah, and I've done some shows that was the goal. I've worked with this group a couple of times in Chicago called Anarchy, the rock opera, and they're very good, and I love playing with them. And they do the Les Mis approach where they're like, we're just going to sing through the whole show. And that's fun to follow. But they're good about like finding like, because in operas, there's like recitatives, I think they call it, where it's like, this is like kind of the song part of it, even though it's all a song. It's like, this is the speaky part and this is the songy part, even though you're singing all the time. They're good at finding that where it's like they're doing the talky parts that happen to be sung, but then there's also like, oh, this is kind of like a songy moment and we're going to treat it like an emotional song thing. Anyway, so that's a fun dichotomy. Thanks for bringing that
up. Alex, other than laughter, what audience sound do you revel in?
I mean, I love when characters get booed. Like if the character is getting booed, I love that. Or it's just like someone walks on and they're just like the most evil villain. And if they can get a boo out of the audience, I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah, I do like that you said character as well. Character, not the actor.
Yeah. Sometimes an actor like if an improviser is like can get a boo by being a character version of themselves.
Sure.
I don't think I've genuinely seen someone boo someone for real, so I can't really like I don't even really have an opinion on that because I've never even seen it, but that would be wild.
Is there a type or quality of laughter you appreciate more than others?
There's a reaction that I'll sometimes have where I'll be kind of like confused laughing, where I'm like, this is so funny, but like, how did you even get here? Like mentally, like how is this the idea? And I'm like loving it and also just like wildly confused. And I think that's a really fun feeling. I like when people are kind of doing like a laughing and while shaking their head, like, of course you're doing this. Like if I'm doing a song quote or something and just being able to just like, fucking Alex again is doing that. It's just, it can be fun if I feel like I'm not abusing a weird gag in some way.
Yeah.
Then I love getting that reaction.
Is there a sound that the audience could make that would make you uncomfortable?
silence. Like I think the confused silence I think is the most uncomfortable because that's when you feel disconnected. I don't want people to feel, and this is partly maybe like some social anxiety where if it's like if I'm not getting the positive affirmation, I just assume disapproval. I think everyone does this a little bit, but
Yeah.
I definitely do it. So if people are silent, then I'll kind of feel like, ooh, maybe everyone's just kind of like waiting to be able to leave, and that makes me sad. So that's like what I don't really like.
Yeah. Alex, what is the worst venue you've played?
Well, I've done a bunch of corporate gigs. Well, not yeah, like corporate gigs, events and stuff, and those are often fun. I think that the worst case scenario is that the venue is too big for the size of the audience.
Yeah, yeah.
So if it's like, if not a lot of people come to the show, I'm like, no problem. Like I didn't expect that many people to come, but if the space is big and the audience is small, then it just feels bad. I never think like I wish more people came to the show. I always think I wish this space was smaller. I've been in shows where it's like a big house, small audience. They feel a little kind of wonky energy wise. I did a show at a movie theater. It was a really nice movie theater venue. Well, or like it was just a very cool, chill venue. Like I love the business seemed really great, but we were like doing improv kind of in this independent movie theater space. So there was like a big projector screen behind us, and it was pretty big, but only like 30 people came to the show, and it was like a couple hundred seats, and so it was just kind of like it was kind of hard to project. Felt kind of weird, but I haven't had to kind of grind through sort of like some crazy like bar shows or like weird super weird spots where like the audience is like super against you or anything. To my recollection, maybe I blocked it out of my memory. There might be some events that I did that just felt a little like, okay, I don't know what that was, but we did it. I'm sure I've done a couple of those and I just can't pull them up in my mind.
And never a time when they're like, "Okay, and here's your piano," and it's just an out of tune spin it or like a honky tonk old west piano that's
Oh, I did have an experience where I was a guest in another improv theater, and they didn't usually have musicians playing with them, but they were really excited to have me. But they were like, "Yeah, we have a keyboard right here," and the keyboard was like the keys were not like velocity sensitive. So it was kind of just like I couldn't play at like not maximum volume, I guess.
yeah.
So it was hard for me to be dynamic. And also, they didn't have a sustain pedal for the keyboard, which is just it's kind of just like an optional dynamic thing that is nice to have as a piano player. So you can make things sound really like majestic and glidey, kind of like classical music. But now, since then, because of that one experience, whenever I am playing at a venue that says that they have a keyboard, I basically ask like, are the keys velocity sensitive and do you have a sustain pedal or do I need to bring my own? Always happy to bring my own sustain pedal if they don't have one because I don't expect anyone to. But I'm just like, please let me know if I need to bring anything because I don't want to be like, well, I didn't bring my keyboard because you had one, but it just is not really right for the job.
Yeah. I love little bits like that because that's something like in my brain is being cataloged somewhere. It's like if I ever have to write a writer for an away gig
Oh
or
yeah,
something, it's like now I know and I have a musician. Now I know one of the things to ask for.
totally.
What's the best note or the best words of wisdom you've received?
I was talking to my friend Thomas recently, who is also he's an onstage improviser, but he's also a really good musical accompanist improviser that plays and stuff. And so we talk a lot about like just the experiences of being an accompanist in shows and stuff like that. And he said something that I really liked. He was like, "You can't always save a bad scene." And I realized that it was like really helpful to me because
Yeah.
I would be in a scene that just didn't quite have the juice in it that I was hoping for, or like a scene where it's like we haven't found that game, we haven't found that fun character moment that we can lean into. So it's just kind of like maybe feels not a lot of momentum, audiences is connecting with it, and sometimes I would think like, oh, like I need to do something to kind of like pull this together somehow, or really I would just kind of feel down afterwards, just kind of wondering like, oh, did I like not set the right tone for that scene or something? But it's just kind of like I think that allowed me to kind of like step back and being like, the quality of an improv moment is like mostly not related to my contributions, and I can just kind of experience it and do what I can with it. And then that was like kind of freeing and just kind of feeling like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And it makes it easier for me to just kind of move on from that, being like, all right, cool. I'm glad that we're out of that weird scene and we can do another scene, because it happens a lot. And sometimes I'm sure there are times where I make kind of like a counterintuitive musical choice that like other people have to react to in a weird way. And then they're like, I don't know what to do here, but we're just going to roll with it. And then like we move on from that. So it's like, I'm sure it's everything influencing everything.
Yeah. The other side of that coin is, what would you say is either the least helpful note you've received, or if you haven't received one, what's the least helpful note you can conceive of?
I love that idea. I would love to conceive of an unhelpful note, and I don't. I just have to think of one. Okay, here's like a wild story that kind of answers the question. Okay, so one time I'm gonna name names because I think it's funny to name names in this situation. But I did a show with Kevin McDonald from Kids in the Hall because he was a guest. And before the show, I introduced myself and I was like, "Hey, it's great to meet you." And he was like, I was like, I'm gonna play piano in the show. I'm gonna be the accompanist." And he was like, "Great, like don't play any sad music." I think he was joking, but he was just kind of like, that was like his first thing that he said. He's like, "Don't play any sad music." I was like, okay, cool. And then we did the show, and it was just like a kind of a long form montage show. And I think like I started playing some kind of emotional music that felt right for the character that he was playing in one scene. And he like addressed me on stage, and he was like, "I said don't play any sad music." And I was like, okay. And he like, and it was, people were laughing. It was like a really fun game that we were playing with each other. And so that became kind of a game of the scene. And I was like, I backed off. And then like, I think it was his scene partner, actually. His scene partner, Randy, was playing with a duo scene with him, and Randy's character was getting emotional. So I was underscoring him, but then Kevin was like, "Don't play any sad music." So it was kind of this like three-way game where it's like Randy would start monologuing and then I would start playing, and he would be like, "No, stop, don't stop." And it kind of became like Kevin was like trying to stop me at all costs. He like ran into the pit and started like choking me and threw me on stage, and then we'd chase each other around the theater. So that was like if he had just said that genuinely seriously, I would have been like, what a wild note to give somebody. But because like he was clearly just like leaning into it as like kind of a joke for everybody, then I was just like, that is like one of my favorite improv moments.
I love it. If there were an Academy Awards for everything improv, and especially improv musical director related, what would you be nominated for?
I would probably get like the like Academy Award for like most Japanese jazz fusion albums recommended to other people.
Not prog rock?
Like backstage. That's my favorite. Prog rock is my dad's favorite, but my favorite music is jazz fusion, Japanese jazz fusion. And so I'm often like sending people that like, you should check this out. And so I feel like people would nominate me for being obsessed with that.
I love it. Kind of related is, if you're remembered 100 years from now for something improv related, what would you want it to be?
I would feel good. I think I'm kind of on my way to this, which makes me happy, but I would love to be remembered for kind of like creating cool musical improv shows. And I love to like produce stuff. So like sometimes I'll be like, here's my idea for an improv format, and I'm going to kind of like try to help make it happen and like direct people a little bit maybe. And so if I'm remembered for like, wow, Alex really like made a lot of cool improv happen, then I would feel good, I think. And sometimes I get to do that. So I'll try to keep doing that.
Awesome. Okay, so here's the last one. Is there anything I missed, or are there any other improv stories that you love to tell?
The first thing that came into my mind as a fun story was I was the music director for this show called No Strings Attached, which is a puppet musical improv show. And there was a scene where my friend Ben Ligis was playing his puppet character, who tends to get very like saddened in his feelings, and that's kind of a thing for him. And he started going on this kind of silly sad monologue, and I started playing the actual backing chords for the song Mad World, because it was a good like good song pull to get people in that space, and people tend to laugh at that when it's a sad moment in an improv show. And I remember that I played that, and then like he started like singing along to it, but like started making up like parody lyrics to Mad World, but about the scene that he was in. And I was just like, this is wild. Like we're like, because I've seen a lot of improvised songs that are totally new songs, but I don't see a lot of improvised parody songs.
Yeah.
And so like sometimes when that happens, I'm just like, this is so funny. I like, if this weren't like kind of against the rules of musical improv, I would do this so much more often.
See, the next show you need to produce is just improvised Weird Al.
Improvised Weird Al, all parodies. That I've seen that. There was a show, I actually didn't see it, but I heard of a Jet City Improv show called Empty Orchestra that I think was partly that. I've seen a couple times people will put on like kind of like an essentially improvised karaoke. Oh, shout out to, you and I both saw My Town in OSIF. They exactly do that. They're just improvised parodies.
Oh yeah, true.
And that's what I remember, that being like one of the funniest things I've ever seen, because it like was doing a specific thing that I just don't see anyone do in improv. So I agree with you. I think more of this needs to exist.
Well, you already said that you know how to play with the accordion, which is a very Weird Al kind of thing to do. So
true. Yeah.
You know.
Oh, wow.
You're on the way.
Wow. Okay. This is a good idea. Improvise Weird Al. I'm going to file that away.
That's it for my interview with Alex. I hope you enjoyed listening as much as I enjoyed interviewing Alex. If you're up in Seattle, find a show he's in and go see it. If you're not, create a show for him and bring him to you. Find me on Patreon for bonus content, including some extremely fun and dumb, in all the best ways, phone prov I do with Charles Fryerman. Until next time, thanks for listening to Improv Autopsy.